Happy Friday, fantasy fanatics. It's another episode of your daily source for fantasy hockey news and betting breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, taking a look at one of the best fantasy veterans in the game. And of course, a classic Who Would You Rather between two red-hot veteran goaltenders. Let's get this thing.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Red hot might be a bit of a loose term for these goaltenders, Mr. Roden, but it's not when you're talking about this show. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab to the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. You know what it is. Shout out, salute, much love, and thank you to the everydayers for holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. This is your 30-minute daily source for fantasy hockey news, betting breakdowns, and all of the NHL buzz from around the league. Today, Steele, we're keeping this bad boy for once and final. Short and sweet. However,
we'll try to.
Anze Kopitar, he's cooking. You know how I feel about these wily vets. You know how I feel about a classic segment that you and I do. Who would you rather own, Talbot or Binnington? And, of course, a juicy 14-game NHL betting board on Friday night. I've had a big week. I want to keep it rolling. Over to you, my friend. You know how I feel about Anze Kopitar, but you and I haven't discussed too much what we think about this Kings team overall. Over to you. What are you seeing from Copes, and what are you seeing from this LA Kings squad?
I'm just seeing phenomenal play from the veteran of the LA Kings. I mean, he has been absolutely fantastic. You know, I'd like to see a lot more of the peripheral categories kicked up a notch from Kopitar himself. I mean, only 8 hits, 13 blocks, and 29 shots on goal in 23 games. I think, again, he's not one of those guys who really fills out those peripherals, but what he does do is produce offensively. He has been fantastic for this Kings team. 7 goals, 27 points, plus 9, 3 game-winning goals on the season. He's dangerous both on the man advantage and the disadvantage of the penalty kill. He's shooting at 24.1% right now. So even with the lack of shots, he's still finding the back of the net on a regular basis. He's been by far their best performer all season. You know, this team is in the middle of the pack when it comes to goals for and goals against, and he's been providing a lot of that offense for them. Obviously, Adrian Kempe's been doing his thing. The surgence and stepping into the spotlight of Alex Laferriere has been really phenomenal. Brant Clark getting the opportunity with Drew Doughty out of the lineup, who should be coming back hopefully by the end of December after the injury that he's dealing with his foot. But regardless, back to Anze Kopitar. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better start to the season for a guy who's 37 years old, who's playing with guys who are like in the middle of their prime, on the younger stage or the younger stage of their career right now. So he's been really, really good. He ranks 67th in Yahoo right now. Again, for me, just when you have a guy of that caliber, and I've mentioned this when I talk about guys like Miro Heiskanen, Charlie McAvoy, guys who have the skill set, but just kind of lack producing in those peripheral categories in fantasy leagues. Kopitar is one of those guys, but he just continues to produce on a nightly basis, which is great to see.
Yeah, and I would say this. Those other players you mentioned, I think you almost draft to look to really fill out all categories.
Yeah.
Kopitar, not so much, but I hear you if we're talking about all-around fantasy. However, considering his age and considering where you probably got him in these past fantasy drafts, this is one of those pieces that if the rest of your team was looking pretty good and you got a few steals like Copes, this is one of those spots where you're probably sitting pretty. In your league currently, I like to gush on these old guys, Steele. I like to talk about the quality of their careers. Of course, the fantasy angles. Kopitar has gotten it done from start to finish. 80 points in 97 career playoff games as well. A very clutch performer in his career. 1,300 plus games, 1,200 plus points. And this season somehow turning back the clock, and it's not just the offense. He is playing a solid two-way game, and I don't even know how this is possible. He is still playing over 19 minutes in ice time per night. This is a player that doesn't get nearly enough credit. He doesn't get nearly enough love, and I understand as East Coast boys in this time zone, an LA King player might not get as much attention, but he really should. He's also, Steele, winning faceoffs at a better clip than any season of his career at almost 58%. So there is a lot to like about Anze Kopitar, but to just peel it back to the Kings for a second, and I want your opinion on this, to turn it over to you. Because when I look at that Western Conference and I look at some of those clubs, the strength here for this Kings team lies up the middle. Kopitar, Byfield, Danault, very solid trio of centermen. It's the back end. David Riddick, as much as he has stood in there and been admirable this season, 8-6-0, 2.52 goals against, and an 8.85 save percentage, which doesn't jump off the page. Riddick and Kemper aren't taking you anywhere. So I don't know what this Kings team is planning, because they're more than good enough up front. With Doughty coming back on the blue line, I think they're fine back there too. To me, clear weakness is that duo in the cage, fantasy or otherwise.
Yeah, both goaltenders below 900 save percentage right now. I mean, the goals against average has been pretty solid because they've been so good defensively as a team so far this season. Like I said, middle of the pack right now in the National Hockey League. But, look, they traded for Darcy Kemper for a reason. I think there's maybe some opportunity when it gets closer to the trade deadline. Maybe they start looking on the market for another goaltender.
Thin market.
Darcy Kemper is a Stanley Cup champion. He has been a goaltender in the past who has done the job well. So I think this is for him more of trying to get him to a place of confidence of where he is at the stage of his career. 34 years old, again, just got traded from the Washington Capitals after a bad season. Kind of a new start for both him and Pierre-Luc Dubois. And so far, again, he dealt with injury a little bit so far this year. But all three of their goaltenders, even Phoenix Copley, all three of them are over 32, 33 years old right now. So they got some older goaltenders in the blue paint. I would agree that is their one weakness right now. Maybe if Drew Doughty comes back, that helps kind of intensify the blue line a little bit in front of him, where he can feel a little bit more confident. He just got to continue doing his job, making those saves and making sure there's no extracurriculars in front of him with some bad management of the puck and rebound. So, I mean, it is what it is with Darcy Kemper and David Riddick. Those are guys that, I mean, if you have to, you might have to pick them up if you need some help in the goaltender category position. But, I mean, Anze Kopitar, those other guys we mentioned, they've been pretty good.
Going to talk about one more angle with this LA Kings team right around the break, and then we're going to talk about a couple other veteran fantasy goaltenders and who would you rather, Binnington or Talbot. 14-game NHL betting board on tap for Friday. We got our locks of the night coming up. But before we get there, we got to show some love to our friends at Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You never want a stressful ticket buying experience for your next big event, comedy, theater, music, and of course, sports. Steele and I love the Game Time app for all of our local sports events, especially those Toronto Maple Leafs, baby. How we looking? Even though with that loss to the Panthers, Steele, we're still cooking in the top of the division. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Today's episode is also brought to you by Built Rewards. Take this in. With the seasons changing, I'm already dreaming of the warm weather getaway. Steele, big boy wants to hit that beach, and I love using points for travel. Always looking for ways to earn more ways to book my next flight. And here's a little hack for you. Built Rewards lets you earn points on rent payments and redeem them towards flights, hotels, and a whole lot more. One of your biggest investments should get you more than just a roof over your head. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you earn valuable points on rent and your everyday spending. Start earning points on rent that you're already paying by going to built.com/LockedOnNHL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL. Check the URL. Know that we sent you from joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNHL and start earning points on your rent payments today. That's Built Rewards.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. We really do appreciate all that love and support you've been showing us Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Make sure you continue to leave all of your comments, opinions, statements, questions on the YouTube channel. DM us on Twitter as well. We really do appreciate all the feedback and all the conversations we have with all of our listeners out there. So thank you so much for that. We're going to get over to a Who Would You Rather Between Cam Talbot and Jordan Binnington, who would you rather for your fantasy hockey team? Real quick, though, one last point on the LA Kings flip.
It's just very quick because when I look at this team, they've been really getting it done by committee offensively, and it's the offense is driven by the duo of Kopitar and Kempe, and they have really looked solid together of late, and the chemistry that they have formed, it's actually critical to the success of both of them this year fantasy-wise, and I think while they continue to cook, this team will be fine offensively. 27 for Kopitar, 23 for Kempe. Obviously, Kempe the shooter in this situation, Kopitar the disher, but that's been working out just fine, and I just wanted to show that tandem some love. Speaking of tandems, goaltenders, Talbot, Binnington. I'm going to turn it over to you. I have a pretty clear angle on this one, although right now I think the hotter hand is Talbot. Over to you. What are you seeing here? Because I know I got to give you a bit of love. You've been standing by Talbot for a while now, and I got to tip my cap because he's looked pretty good of late, and the numbers back it up.
Yeah, I mean, with the way that Talbot has been playing, this Detroit Red Wings team should be a lot better and a lot higher up in the standings. But again, we talked about them on the most recent episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod, where they're just not getting enough scoring right now from some of those top guys, especially Lucas Raymond. You know, some Moritz Seider not chipping in as much as we thought that he would, and some of those depth guys in the bottom six. Regardless of that, for me, it's Cam Talbot all the way. No questions about it. You know, especially with this season, I'm looking at their entire careers as well when we talk about who would you rather. Cam Talbot, for me, I've stood by him. Huge fan of his play, especially when he was with the Minnesota Wild. He's played on 8 different teams in the span of his career. The only one bad season he had, can you guess where he was playing, where he had his one bad season? Take a guess.
Wasn't Edmonton.
Wasn't Edmonton.
Minnesota?
Nope. The one bad year that he has on his resume, it's with the Ottawa Senators, where he had an 898 save percentage.
I should have got that.
You should have got that.
Yeah.
The one bad season, an 898 save percentage and a 2.93 goals against average. Still, I mean, it's not the worst, but it's not the best he's been. He's been fantastic so far this year. 6-4-2 record, a 923 save percentage, a 2.47 goals against average over the last 5 games. He has been nothing but spectacular, and he only has 2 wins to show for it. I mean, I'm looking at this right now. Win over Calgary at a 960 save percentage, a loss against Boston, a 931 save percentage, a loss against the LA Kings, a 925 save percentage, and a win against Pittsburgh, a 939 save percentage. He has been nothing but exactly what the Red Wings have needed in the blue paint so far this season. They should be a lot better than what they've done. It has nothing to do with him. It's the lack of scoring they have offensively right now. Cam Talbot, for me, I have him on 3 of my fantasy leagues, both in the casual and competitive leagues, listener leagues, and then in my keeper league that we just created with my boys back from Stouffville. So I was hot on Cam Talbot, high on Cam Talbot going into this season, being one of those goaltenders that you could really kind of let fall down the board if you're using that 0G strategy. And he's been amazing so far.
I think both of these goaltenders definitely fell into that strategy. Shout out to the boys from Apples and Ginos. Clearly, in this situation, I see a lot of parallels between these two goaltenders, Steele. I see a lot of parallels between the teams in front of them right now as well. There's not a lot to get excited about, in my opinion, about either Detroit or St. Louis, and both of them are going to be, at best, that second bubble playoff wild card team. I think that's kind of their aspirations and goals at this point. To talk about Binnington and to talk about who would you rather own, I think for me, there's 2 clear angles. Number one, Binnington's been a winner, and he's a big game goaltender. The numbers, I think, do clearly favor Cam Talbot, and the performance of late, you know, you might be able to make an argument because Binnington's been sold out a little bit by his team, but again, much like Talbot has, he looked really good the other night. He got a shutout. The night before that, he had a 940 save percentage in the win. He is a big game goaltender, and the second main edge for me and why I would want him, and this is, again, in the keeper dynasty side of things, but, you know, I got to bring it up, it's the age. At 31 years old, and I think Talbot is going into 37 years old. He already is 37, so there's that angle as well. Does that play into a year-to-year league? No, of course not. And right now, for the rest of the season, it doesn't matter. I think both teams, I might tip the edge slightly to St. Louis's chances on making the playoffs in the West, just because I think the East is so tight and the West is a little bit more wide open. So I'm going to take that edge in terms of the who would you rather. But it's also interesting, and I want to leave it to you with this, but I guess I know your answer. Even though I think they might both make the team, these might be two of Canada's goaltenders for that Four Nations Cup. I know that doesn't have fantasy kind of value, but it's very interesting that we're talking about two guys that are playing well right now. I'll spit it out. I'm going to take Jordan Binnington. I'm going to take the big save angle. I'm going to take the clutch performances and the winning caliber of Jordan Binnington. But right now, I might be up the hill arguing on this one. Cam Talbot, you've been all over him for a couple of seasons, but I think he's been a backup along a big time portion of his career for a reason. And Jordan Binnington has been nothing but a starter. I know that's a little bit of an intangible, but I'll just throw that out there for fun.
I mean, I don't even think Cam Talbot's been a backup for the majority of his career. I mean, he played 73 games for Edmonton, then 60. Followed that up with 67, 35 the year after that. I mean, he's been a backup some seasons in the National Hockey League, but he wasn't with the Minnesota Wild. He's not been with the LA Kings when he played with them. Look, this is going to be a difficult thing for Team Canada and Four Nations face-off because I think the goalie value or the goalie market right now for them is not as great as the other three nations. I mean, you got Jordan Binnington, Cam Talbot, Aiden Hill, Stuart Skinner, I believe, is in there. I think I'm missing one other goaltender that was maybe
they were looking into Joey Decord's availability.
Yeah, Joey Decord. Yeah, I believe he was born in Boston, but they're looking into maybe getting dual citizenship or something. Maybe they can exempt him somehow. The goalie market right now for Team Canada is not the best when comparing it to
Logan Thompson. That's the other one they're looking at.
Logan Thompson was the other one that was mentioned as well. So it's not the best. However, again, even regardless of the Stanley Cup championship for Jordan Binnington, Cam Talbot's been the best goaltender right now out of all those guys we just mentioned. So I'm going with Cam Talbot. Again, they can take three. So Cam Talbot, Jordan Binnington. I'd probably go with Aiden Hill as the third goaltender there. But again, when you look over to Team USA, you got Connor Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger and all those guys. It's going to be a little bit of a difficult situation. But Cam Talbot has been nothing but solid and exactly what the Detroit Red Wings have asked for when acquiring him and signing him to this deal. So I'm going with Cam Talbot. Also, real quick, before we get to the big time bet, shout out to Jordan Binnington. I believe he is the franchise leader in wins right now for the St. Louis Blues after that 3-0 shutout against the New Jersey Devils. Also, we haven't talked about Monty signing with the St. Louis Blues either. He signs that 5-year deal. He wins his first 2 games. So big shout out to Binnington and Monty for some good performances over the last 2.
Yeah, maybe that means good things. Hey, maybe I should have said about Monty. Now Jordan Binnington has a good coach deal, so there you go. Look, both guys right now, very valuable in fantasy leagues. And if they're out there for whatever reason, Talbot might be more likely because Binnington's a bigger name. Shallow leagues, we're talking about very shallow leagues of only maybe 6 to 8 GMs. I'd be taking a look at both goaltenders because they're starting to cook and maybe they're starting to hear some of these whispers still about being Canada's goaltender. Hey, that's a big deal. It's a big time platform for these players. Let's get to these bets though, because I want to keep rolling. Shout out to everyone out there asking for the picks. We bring them at the end of every single episode. Steele, over to you. I'm ready to roll.
Where you can make those picks, though, that's FanDuel. FanDuel, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need in one place to place live bets on the NFL all the time. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you once again for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Let's try to hit that goal of 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We are just over 1,000 away. So we really do appreciate all that love and support. Just continue to share it with your friends and family. Continue to hit that subscribe button. It means the world to Flip and I. That's why we do what we do 5 days a week, and with the big time bets, trying to secure some extra cash in the pockets of all of our listeners out there. Over to you, my friend. Okay. It's been a little bit of a rough week for me. I'm keeping things very simple on Friday night, but over to you because you've been nothing but fantastic.
Well, a little ode to my pal on the other side of the microphone here, Mr. 2+ point Roden. I'm not backing off of this one. Edmonton rolls into Utah with points in 8 out of 10 games against the Arizona Yeti, whatever we're calling them now. Edmonton into Utah. I got McDavid 2+ points. This just feels like a night where McJesus absolutely feasts. In 26 career regular season games, 38 points for Connor. This feels like an angle where I know Utah's been getting dubs, but they have been looking like a very rocky young team, and they've been leaving their goalies out to dry a little bit. Sergachev, by the way, what a fantasy beast. They really fleeced Tampa Bay on that deal. Yeah. However, I love the 2+ points here for Connor McDavid. That's my first pick. If you're okay, I'm just going to fire off my next two.
Fire away, my friend.
The next one I'm taking a look at, I think you could probably back me up on this deal. I see the Buffalo Sabres right now. I see overs. I see the Vancouver Canucks. I see the same. The total has gone over the number in 4 of Vancouver's last 5 games, and the total has gone over the number in 6 of Buffalo's last 7 playing at home against Vancouver. This one's jumping off the page to me as an over. I could see 4-3. I could see 5-3. Let's keep it very simple. Canucks, Sabres, over the number. And we didn't come on this show just flapping the gums and putting a little lip service down about my boy Anze Kopitar. The LA Kings roll into Anaheim, ready to feast on a little pheasant duck, if you get me. Anze Kopitar here, lock of the night. Anytime assist, Kopitar, we talked all about him. And in his career, 57 assists in 87 career regular season games against the Ducks. He loves playing in that Pacific Division. The Kings are kind of feeling it offensively right now. We talked about them. They've been a little bit up and down in the standings, but they're still holding it down near the top of the division, and they're going to roll through Anaheim tonight. Lock of the night, by far my favorite pick. Anze Kopitar, anytime assist, ode to Kopi in this one. That's my favorite pick of the night, Steele.
Loving the picks. I'm staying away from the over in that Canucks Sabres game just because I hit the over in that Wild Sabres game and it was 1-0. So I like the pick. I like the pick, but I gotta stay away from that one because it hurt me the other day. However, I will be picking the Sabres on the money line for my first pick. This again, I like the over 5.5 in this matchup. I'm gonna stay away from it personally. But regardless, Buffalo has been very good in the last 10, 7-3-0 in their last 10. We're seeing some shakiness in the goaltending from the Vancouver Canucks, Artur Shilovs and Lankinen as well. They are 5-5 in their last 10. I'm going with a gut feeling. Buffalo Sabres at home, first pick on the money line. Second pick, I'm going with the Rangers on the money line as well against the Philadelphia Flyers. It's been a little bit of a tough stretch. A lot of news and commotion going on right now. You know, are they going to make a big trade? Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba, what's going on with them? Chris Kreider was actually out of the game in their last game against the Carolina Hurricanes. So there could be something, stirring up over there. Who knows? Regardless, this losing streak needs to end. They go up against the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm taking the Rangers on the money line on the road. And then I'm parlaying this with my lock of the night, the Wild on the money line against the Chicago Blackhawks. They've just been such a fun team to watch this year. I know a lot of people don't watch the Minnesota Wild play, but they have been nothing short of fantastic so far this season. Kirill Kaprizov hops back in the lineup. He gets the one and only goal, the game-winning goal against the Buffalo Sabres. I'm loving these 3 picks. I'm keeping it simple. I'm looking at all 3 of those early games on Friday. Rangers money line, Sabres money line, Wild money line, lock of the night.
I don't exactly hate on you for going with the Wild in this one. It's the obvious choice. It's just the Chicago Blackhawks just exploded for 6 goals against a good Dallas Stars team. And I can't tell if that's more indicative of the Stars somewhat struggling or the Blackhawks maybe waking up.
I think it's more indicative of the Stars. I mean, Jake Onger has not been himself.
Sure. And he did look shaky in that game.
He did. And I mean, Besides,
You know what I'm getting
that,
at, right?
I know what you're getting
Yeah,
at,
yeah.
but like the second line right now has just been the best line for Dallas. I mean, if they're not going, the top line's been doing
Good point.
nothing. Robertson, Hintz,
Good point.
who's on the top line with them?
They've been
Whether
shuffling. They've been
shuffling
their
lines because
quite
that
a
top
bit.
line's not been good. Jason
And
Robertson has been
RoboCop,
nothing.
and they've been shifting that right wing.
Robertson's been embarrassing this season in fantasy hockey leagues. I mean, it's been hurtful.
We should do a disappointing players that are like the most disappointing.
He's on the top of the list right now.
There you go. Let's get it. We'll be back. Little Saturday special coming in hot tomorrow, and we'll be back all week long. Steele, I'm fired up, baby. This is a tough stretch of the fantasy schedule, so keep it tapped to the pod.
Still lots of hockey to be taken in and lots of weekly matchups. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Once again, for your second listen, you got to go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. The link is in the description below, so you don't have to go searching for it. The season never ends. They provide national expertise with a local perspective. It's absolutely tremendous, so make sure you go check it out. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, from both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets tonight. Make sure you're tuning in for the Saturday special, and we will be back here again tomorrow.
Peace.